Should we be weighing kids at school? According to the Australian College of Nursing, the answer is yes, but not in the way you might think. The media, of course, is blowing this all out of proportion with sensational headlines all about quote unquote sparking concerns from the experts. But let's cut the outrage for a moment and look at the actual recommendation from the ACN, the Australian College of Nursing. They are not suggesting kids be publicly weighed and shamed, of course. The ACN are saying that every school aged child should have access to a registered nurse to maintain a healthy weight. That is the quote from the ACN. That is quite different, of course, from what the headlines are saying and what they would have you believe. Today, I'm going to unpack what this actually means and share my personal story because I definitely feel like I've got skin in the game with this one. And I want to ask the real question. Should we be weighing kids? Or are we actually just too afraid to have these difficult conversations? So here's a little bit about my personal story. Growing up, I was the only boy in my class who had boobs. In fact, my boobs were probably bigger than most of the girls at school. I wasn't just overweight. I was also the only kid who couldn't even do a pull up in the PE class, phys ed class. And what did my teachers, parents, pretty much everybody else say? Oh, it's okay, don't worry, not everyone can do a pull up. But you know what? That was actually pretty terrible advice. No one told me this is a problem. No one told me that I was severely undermuscled and I was really falling behind physically. I didn't realize how much that set me up for failure. And only now, as I'm approaching 40 in a month or so, I'm learning the real importance of muscle health, which is really tragic, especially given my 20 years of medical experience, that only now I'm realizing the importance of muscle. Most people are severely undermuscled, myself, I'm sure, included. Now, I'm working hard, of course, to try and fix this. Let's talk a little bit about muscle health quickly before we get back to the main topic. And here's something pretty shocking that you might not know. Many people don't even know that they are undermuscled. Studies show that 57% of adults don't engage in any muscle strengthening exercises, even though this is essential for long-term health. Low muscle mass is linked to a higher risk of chronic diseases like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even all-cause mortality. So when I hear people downplaying the importance of physical activity, exercise, and muscle strength in schools, I really can't help think that we are setting our kids up for failure. Low skeletal muscle mass is linked to a higher risk of all-cause mortality. That is a pretty big statement. What we often forget is that muscles aren't just for athletes or people obsessed with fitness or their appearance. They're not just for vanity, they are essential for everybody's health. Research shows that people with low muscle mass are more likely to suffer from chronic conditions like metabolic syndrome, heart disease, and even increased mortality rates, as I've already mentioned. And let's face it, most of us are severely undermuscled if we're really honest with ourselves. If we don't address this early on in schools, our kids are missing out on crucial development opportunities, which I think is absolutely tragic. Let's get back to the story though. The Australian College of Nursing isn't just talking about weighing kids, and they certainly are not advocating for public weigh-ins and body shaming. They're recommending a comprehensive approach where registered nurses can track kids' growth, including measurements like waist circumference, height, and other health metrics. They're not just looking at weight and BMI. They've made it very clear that nurse-led interventions offer a, quote, flexible and cost-effective solution to childhood obesity, end quote, which goes far beyond stepping on a scale. This means that nurses are there to help identify kids who may be at risk of health issues, not just overweight children, but undermuscled kids like I was. They're advocating for conversations around health in a supportive, data-driven way, not shaming and not singling out kids like some people would have you believe. Nurses are uniquely positioned to identify at-risk children, educate families, and combat weight stigma. This is a direct quote from the ACN position statement. So who should we listen to? And here I think is actually the big question. Who do we trust? On one side, we have health professionals, pediatricians, doctors, nurses, nutritionists who have spent years studying human health. On the other side, we have so called self proclaimed body image experts who are telling us that weighing kids will cause shame and disaster. But that's usually where they stop the conversation. Rarely do these quote unquote experts provide any practical, evidence based solutions for tackling obesity and undermuscling, or sarcopenic obesity. And that's where these so called body image experts fall short. They say, no, no, you can't weigh kids because it's going to cause all these problems. But they never seem to offer any actual alternatives or ways to address these problems. Avoiding weight checks because they might hurt somebody's feelings doesn't solve underlying health problems, and it just kicks the can down the road. I think, frankly, it's irresponsible and it's allowing our kids to fall through those cracks. The real conversation, though, the ACN's approach, I think, includes a lot more than just stepping on a scale. Let's look at some of the other measures that they're actually recommending measuring, if we can cut beyond the sensational headlines. They're talking about waist to height ratios. Waist circumference is actually a much, much better indicator of health risk than BMI. It's a very reliable predictor of metabolic issues like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and other things. Studies have shown that waist to height ratio can detect obesity far more accurately, or risks rather, far more accurately than other measures like BMI, for example. They're also advocating for checking physical activity. Let's not forget about that. The ACN is recommending that schools not only monitor weight, but looking at the kids' physical fitness. Are they meeting basic physical benchmarks? I mean, I don't think I would have back in the day. Can they run? Can they do push-ups? Can they do pull-ups? I certainly couldn't. Tackling physical activity gives us a broader picture of a child's overall health, not just their weight. So what can we actually do here? Here's a few simple practical steps that I think we can take, things that the so-called body image experts often fail to provide. So number one is normalize health tracking. Rather than making weight a taboo topic, we need to normalize this conversation. As the ACN suggests, schools, I think, should track height, weight, and waist circumference and physical activity in a way that is private and supportive and based on long-term data. This isn't about public shaming. It's about giving kids the health tools they need to thrive. I think number two is muscle building programs. I think schools should prioritize muscle strengthening activities and physical activities, which are very often overlooked. Kids don't need to be athletes, but making sure they can do basic exercises like pull-ups or squats could set them up for a much healthier future. It also builds confidence and ensures kids aren't falling behind physically, which is really important. Number three is family involvement. I think we need to involve families in these conversations. Health doesn't begin and end in the school gym. No. As the ACN emphasizes, it's critical to include families in this process. So all of this is not about shaming kids. None of it is. It's about giving them the tools they need for a healthy future. And that starts with real conversations, real data, and real practical solutions. So should we weigh kids in schools? I think so, but let's do it in the right way. If you've enjoyed this video, guys, hit a like, subscribe, share it to your friends, and let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this controversial subject of weighing kids in schools. Are we going over the top, or are we just being too soft? Thank you, guys, and I'll see you in the next episode.